Hard shift 442. 442 is just an activity today. So we'll have some time to slow down and chat anyway. But no more 116 content. 442 alliterations. It's, Lana, to answer your question, it's 7 user stories total. So it's a team activity. So I think there are 2 teams of 4 and 1 team of 6. Everybody else is a team of 5. So just for simplicity, I'll say 5. So between the 5 of you, you have to come up with 7 user stories. So what I'd recommend is collaborate on 2 of them, and then you each write your own to round out the 7. At least 2 of them, or collaborate on all 7. Do whatever you want to do. But your workload is like 1.2. Oh, math is hard, but 1.4 stories each. So it's not too demanding to ask for 7 stories and acceptance tests. So let me get 116 off the screen here. Let me resize this. And I mentioned this briefly, but I did put Git on Monday's lecture. It was on the following Monday, so I rearranged a few things here just to make sure you have branching earlier. So, you know what? I'm not even going to download this and put it in presentation. It's only 2 slides, 3 counting the title. So here's your... Oh, I'll just do it that way. So here's your activity. Today is an activity. I don't have a lecture for you. I'll interact with chat. If chat dies down, what I'm going to do is do the activity myself for the project that I set up on Wednesday. So, and maybe we can brainstorm together if it comes to that. Depends what we do. But I'll still hang out for the whole lecture time, regardless. So in your group, which you all have, if anybody doesn't know their group, please let me know. Let me open up Slack right now. If you do not know your group, DM me, and I'll see it on my laptop over here. So let me know if you don't know who your team is. I assume everybody does now, but I did have somebody contact me this morning. They didn't know they were in a group, but the group did add them to the forum. So if it's some weird situation like that, just let me know. Don't let this activity come and go without saying anything, without speaking up. So write 7 or more. I'm not going to stop you at 7, but I only put 7 spots on the form. Write 7 good. I mean, they should be as good as you can get. User stories with acceptance test. Follow the template that we used in class. As a role which cannot be user, as some descriptive role describing the motivation that they have, I want to take some action so I can get some testable reward out of that. And then write the acceptance tests in the same way that we saw. A non-technical user should be able to go through the steps, and it should be a list of steps to take. They should be able to go through the list of steps in your acceptance tests and verify that the user story is complete, that feature does exist. Each story should describe a unique feature. This is how we're capturing the needs of our project. Each user story describes a feature. The acceptance test is how do we know that feature now exists if you're claiming the user story is implemented. 7 total, not each. You don't need 35 total stories. That'd be a bit excessive. Doable, but a lot of them would end up being pretty poor quality at some point. Communication, always important. And this will be due, all activities are going to be due by 6 a.m. the following day. So tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern time. And that's to accommodate any time zones. If it's 2 a.m. right now and you're watching this on YouTube, if it's 2 a.m. at the time of streaming, you're waking up, you have time to do the activity. If you have a team member in a very different time zone, I assume you're working that out and making sure that you have a meeting time that's appropriate for everybody. You don't have to do the activity right now, though I recommend it. You all know you have this time slot in your schedule open. So I'd recommend get in some Zoom meeting, get on Discord, whatever you're using to communicate with your team, and knock out this activity and get it done before the end of lecture. If we were having this class live on campus, it would be due at 3:50. It would have to be submitted by then, before you left the lecture hall. So I would recommend keeping within that spirit, but just to accommodate everybody, I have a generous deadline here. Like I wanted to say one more. Oh, and add these user stories and acceptance tests to your Zen Hub. You should have these as issues marked as user stories in your Zen Hub on your Scrum board. At the very least, before your recitation next week, when you meet with your project manager will look at these. In that first meeting, and to be considered prepared for that meeting. So check the absence policy in the syllabus if you don't remember. But to be considered prepared for that meeting and not use up your grace absence on the very first meeting, make sure these user stories and tests are on there. It would suck for a whole team to be not prepared for that meeting just because you wrote these user stories and tests but didn't upload them to GitHub. So make sure you're submitting the form and also adding them to GitHub. Because you will be meeting with your project managers. I did send the team list over to Dr. Hertz. So he's got to process it. He's got to assign project managers and do all that. And then the project managers have to contact you. But I would imagine today, over the weekend, or at the very least before your recitation time next week, you'll be contacted by your project manager, and they'll tell you what the contact information is for recitation. Akari, it's not necessarily going to be a Zoom link. Dr. Hertz is going to leave it up to each project manager as to how they want to organize the lecture. So it might be some other platform, but they will let you know what that contact information is. I'm kind of hoping they all stick with Zoom anyway, because I feel like we all have to use Zoom no matter what. So if they add a different platform, it's just one more thing that we got to think about. But watch your email. You'll be being contacted. They'll let you know exactly what's up. And before that meeting, preferably right after you submit this thing, submit the Google form, let me know. I do have office hours now, Thursdays, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I didn't give you the Zoom link for that. You would have no way of finding me. I'll have to get the Zoom link. Once I'm done with this spiel, I'll get the Zoom link somewhere. Or just post to me on Slack. If you DM me on Slack, that's if you have something that I need to know that needs my response, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. If you email me for this course, that's going to be a lot slower. I'm prioritizing Slack over email. So you'll get a faster answer with a DM on Slack. Some of you have emailed me, and I will respond on Slack just to make that abundantly clear. Material is difficult. A few examples. If you need help with anything in this course, I wanted to make sure I said this. This course should be difficult, especially the design aspects. And, how do I approach just an open-ended, this is the cool thing we want to build, what do we do now? Come to my office hours, we can chat about it. The office hours are shared with 116, so if 116 gets to be crowding it too much, I'll do something about it. We'll have some secret office hours for you guys or something. We'll figure out something. Yeah, slide in my DMs. And the form for this is on the course schedule. Click Activity 1. It's going to take you right to the Google form. I have a reminder to put these in Zen Hub. And every team member must submit this form to earn credit. So just a few quick reminders if you're one of those people who doesn't read instructions. There's only 2 important pieces of information here. It's pretty compact. Make sure you read it. If you're not listening to me right now, every team member must submit this form. So this isn't like the team formation where just one person submits it. For any activity, everyone on the team will submit that activity to get their individual credit. If only one member of the team submits the form, that team member will get the credit for the activity, but no one else on the team will. So it's not like, and I was thinking of a way to word it. I'm like, I'll just explain it during lecture. You'll earn credit if you submit, but your teammate who doesn't isn't going to earn credit. So it's not like you have to hound your teammates and be like, yo, you got to submit so I earn credit. It's not like that. But if your teammate ghosts on you, they don't get points. Like, don't depending on how much you're happy with your teammate, you don't have to hunt them down and be like, yo, we're doing this activity. They just won't get credit because they won't know your user stories to submit. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted. So 7 user stories with acceptance tests in your team name. It will automatically collect your email address. That's how I'm going to know you submitted. And I think that's the whole spiel I have to do. I need my Zoom link. Maybe I'll do that after lecture because I have to go to my laptop for that. And with that, if you're here to know what you have to do for the activity, that's everything you need to know. Feel free to go in your Zoom meetings or hang out and schedule a time to do it with your team later. But make sure you're figuring out the logistics with your team. This is your first kind of like required meeting time with your team. So this also doubles as making sure that you have a means to communicate, at least verbally, with your whole team remotely, which is always tougher. It's easier in lecture. I can just be like, get in your groups and do it. It's a little tougher here. Another reason to extend the deadline. Thought only one person submits the Google form. That was for team formation. So only one member had to submit the form for yesterday's deadline. For this activity, for activities, it's a different protocol. Everybody has to submit it. And it's fine if you have like a shared Google Doc. You write up your user stories and acceptance tests there, or even better yet, just go to ZenHub, create the issues and everything, and then each team member can just cut and paste the 14 pieces of information. Like, you don't have to come up with unique answers. They can be the same exact text. But I just want to make sure everybody was participating. I don't want that one person who's just sitting there screwing off on their phone during the meeting or doesn't even show up. You slap their name on it because they're on the team, and then they get credit. Like, at the very least, you can hit Control-C, Control-V 14 times. If you can't even handle that, you don't deserve credit. Like, come on, you're adults. We can do that. But if you can't even handle that, it's a good indicator to me that person didn't help the rest of the team. And if they're letting their teammates down, I want some way to hold them, be able to hold them accountable. Because I don't want dead weight teammates dragging your teams down. And I have various ways in this course to try to address that. This is one of them. This is the first one that you're seeing. Okay, with that, let me catch up on chat. You submit them with the Google form and also upload them to ZenHub. But the Google form you have to do by 6 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. On ZenHub, make sure you do that before your first meeting with your project manager. I recommend doing them both before 3:50 Eastern time today. Just get it done, meet with your team right now. Then you don't have to worry about it. Then you don't have to worry about forgetting, oh man, I forgot to write them on ZenHub. And at least with ZenHub, only one person has to remember to do that too. So there's not really an excuse for missing that. As a student, I want to sleep, so I sleep. Oh, hopefully that was clear, but the user stories have to be related to your project. I didn't mention that. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that explicitly. I almost forgot. But these are user stories for your project. These are the stories that when you have your first team meeting, if you haven't already, you're going to pick a few of these user stories to be the stories that you're going to work on for Sprint 1 and get started programming. So make sure you put some thought into these, because some of these, you're going to take some subset of these stories and implement them and actually build them for Sprint 1. So make sure you're taking them seriously. The more work and effort you put into this activity, it's going to pay off once you start coding, if you haven't coded already, if you haven't started coding. Link to the forum. Yeah, I'm in old chat, so I answered some of these questions. No, grading is done with the form. So I'm grading the activity through the form. If you have, and you're putting them on ZenHub for your project manager. So part of this activity is for the first lecture activity, and the other part, uploading to ZenHub, that's for your first meeting to avoid the unprepared, which is either an absence or a half absence for the whole team in this case, for the project. So there are two things hinging on this. And y'all have a lot of questions about, does everybody have to submit the form? It's the first thing on the form. If you read anything on it, which I get that, I get it, but with so many people asking that, like, none of you read that? Come on. Though I'm not surprised. Yeah, oh, I see. If you were confusing it with the initial project info form. Yeah, different forms, though. Different forms, different protocols. Yeah, and same answer for everybody on your team can submit the same exact character for character submissions. That's fine. They can also differ. Hey, if they're a little bit different too, that's fine too. Has anyone been able to join the repos on GitHub? Yeah, I think most people are set up. I haven't been able to join my team's repo. If you go to the initial project information form, go to the classroom, and this should give you, accept assignment, and then it'll give you a list of teams. I'm already on a team, so it doesn't give me that. But it'll give you a list of teams. Find your team's GitHub team, and there will be a join button there. If you don't see that, if there's an issue with that, let me know. Send me hit me up on the thing. There is one team. I don't want to type on my laptop and ignore y'all right now, but there is one team. Someone already resigned the course, as it turns out. If you're on that team, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm aware of it. It's what it is. You're just a team of 4 now. Yeah, so there's 3 teams of 4. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, 5 identical forms submitted per team. Yep. How do I get to GitHub Classroom? I feel like you should have been asking that question before today. Frozen Cloud. How do you feel about Opera GX? I'm not sure what the GX is. I like the standard Opera browser, though. Can I submit the Google form even now? Wait, for which Google form are we talking about now? If it's a team formation's done. Everybody's on a team. There's no reason to submit that one. The initial project information, if you have your I'm on the wrong one now. This form's done. I can close this form. This form, if you have your 7 user stories and acceptance tests, if you've already written them before this activity, yeah, you can submit. You can submit whenever you want. Or if you saw that I posted the form and the slides and your team already did it ahead of time, yeah, submit whenever you're ready. What the heck is a user story? No thanks. I'm not touching that question. Watch the multiple lectures on user stories. We've only had 5 lectures so far. So I hope that's a joke, but if or you're not enrolled in the course, maybe you're not enrolled in the course. In that case, that's acceptable. That's a good question. It's very briefly, a user story is a way of capturing a requirement for a project, but in a more conversational tone. where non-technical and technical people can all understand what the requirement is and what it's asking the developers to build. We can't see sharp? What do you mean? What do you mean, Pockets? What's the course website? Yeah, now you're definitely trolling. Like, oh, I actually do have a typo today, but CC116.com. I did have a typo in the title today, so I mean, that could be a valid question today if you're not registered for the course and you're just popping in. But the website, I mean, it's as easy as it can be if you're assuming you're registered and taking the class. But if you're just stopping by, it's always in the description, in the title of the stream. But I had a typo in it today. I missed the S. I just updated it. Yeah, Frosty Dude, I think you're... let me get to live chat at least, and I'll check. I got one message that I just answered on stream. But I'll check... let me check that once I get to live chat. And then I'll open up my Zen Hub. Yeah, as a role, I want to take some action so that I get some testable response. Can we use as student? If you're writing an educational app, I mean, if that applies to your situation, I'd prefer for it to be more specific. Like the user stories I wrote on Wednesday, I didn't just use as a student. I used as a student watching the live stream. Something that shows the motivation of the user. Like, why is this, why is it important that you're a student, or what specific subset of students are you in? Just student, like that, which is the same reason we don't just use as a user, because it doesn't give me any motivation. Like, why is this person using the app? They're just a user? It doesn't make sense. As a student, preferably get a little more specific, but as a student could still be fine. As a student does give a lot of description and motivation. Does say a lot about you. What about acceptance tests? Yeah, what about acceptance tests? User stories go in backlog, correct? Yes. So they'll go in backlog until you meet with your team and decide which stories you're going to work on for Sprint 1. And then the Sprint 1 stories will go into the ready pipeline. GitHub says you're our 5th member. You're slacking on our project. I don't know why it adds me to every single... I think it adds me to every team, or at least adds me to every repo. I think it added me to every team. Yeah, I'm going to get 36 Fs this semester for each project. What's the course website? At least with the emoji, I know that you're joking. Zandu. So this is a course at University of Buffalo. This is CSE 442, Software Engineering. Since you're not enrolled in the course, you're more than welcome to hang out. That's why I stream on Twitch and why everything's public. If you want to hang out and learn, you're absolutely more than welcome to do so. We're going to talk about not programming, but the things you are enrolled in the course. Well, I'm halfway through my spiel. I can't just stop now anyway. But so being not enrolled in the course, if you want to hang out, we won't talk about programming, but we will talk about everything surrounding it. Okay, we all know how to program. Now, how do we use that skill to be able to collaborate together and produce quality software? That's the focus of the course. So if you do want to hang out, for anyone who's listening who's not in the course, if you want to hang out and learn, by all means. Today's a little boring because it's just an activity. All the students enrolled are writing user stories for their projects, and I'm just going to chat, and if I get bored, I'm going to start writing some user stories of my own. Did you just send out us PM tools? I don't know what that means. We got an email from me? You got an email from me? I didn't just send out an email. It's spam. Delete it. If you did, someone forward that to me. Did everyone really get an email from me? Where should we put acceptance tests in ZenHubs? So the user story should be the title of the task, and then the acceptance tests go in the description or as a follow-up comment. Where do I find the Google form? On the course website. So on today's date, go to Activity 1. Click it. One of my Valorant or Call of Duty montages coming out. You'll be waiting a while. It's from So UB thing. I signed up for it. What's PM tools? What is that? That's a UB thing? Is that what's happening? CC113.com. That I know what that's going to be. I have to look into this a bit. This is that's a real thing. So that's not for me. I'm assuming Dr. Hertz is setting up. That's PM for project management tool. This is something built by students in Alan Hunt's class, and I believe Alan Hunt is maintaining it now. This is the tool that we're going to use to keep track of your projects and help us handle some of the logistics here. So yeah, it says Jesse Hartloff, but that was I'm almost certain it's going to be Dr. Hertz, just setting up the logistics of our combined, our cross-course collaborative efforts here. It just happened to have my name on the thing. Probably so it didn't freak you out. If it said it was from Matt Hertz, you'd be like, the hell? What's going on? But when it has my name, you're like, oh, that's my instructor. I'm glad he did it during stream so we can talk about it, so I'm aware of it. Yeah, and since he's on a buffalo.edu server, I think he's allowed to spoof my email address without it throwing up red flags. Oh, maybe it is Prime Minister Tools. Postmaster Tools. Yeah, when you look at the domain, when it's a buffalo.edu domain, you can be reasonably confident that it's legit. Especially when it's CSE. It has to come from the department. Obviously I always use common sense, but when they're sending you to a department website, then that can't be an attack site unless it's an inside job. But you can reasonably be assured that it's not at that point. You have permissions to your group's repository? That sounds... I clicked on the wrong screen. Yeah, this is the... you shouldn't go to that directly, but if you go to... Did you go to the link in the forum yet? Go to initial project information. Oh. Let me open it up again. But go to this forum and go to the classroom link. Go to the GitHub Classroom, and then it's going to ask you to accept the assignment. Accept it, and then create the repo there. You can't just go to the organization and create the repo because you don't have write access to the organization. How to delete duplicate user stories on ZenHub. So unfortunately, this is a GitHub feature that you can never delete a GitHub issue. All you can do is close it, and you can update the description and blank it out or say deleted or whatever. But unfortunately, you can't just strictly destroy a GitHub issue. Actually, you know what I would do is just take one of your other user stories and change the description for that user story. So reuse that same issue, but just edit it to one of your other user stories. But yeah, deleting GitHub issues is just not a feature that we get. Yes, as a professor, I want to borrow slides. Thanks, Matt. So I can teach my class. Wait, what URL? An HTTPS. Everything should be HTTPS. Are we using anything that's HTTP? I'd like to know. We'll fix that. All right. Oh. You can't. I mean, I don't really want to answer on the laptop because I don't want to ignore the stream. But is anybody having issues not able to edit their repo? And I guess it depends what you mean by edit. So not everybody has the maintainer role. So there are certain things that only certain members of your team can do in certain cases. I'll go through that again at some point and get everybody maintainer role. But you only have maintainer role if you were in your GitHub Classroom team at the point at which I went through and gave everybody maintainer role. So now that we're after the deadline and some of you are still, getting into the GitHub Classroom, if you don't have maintainer role, there are certain things that you won't be able to do, but you should all be able to pull and push from and to your repo. You should be able to create new branches, and because you all have write access, you should all be able to edit the repo itself, but there are certain features that you won't have without the maintainer role until I get you go through again, take another pass. I'll drag my feet on that because if I do it right now, those of you who are still trying to get in your GitHub Classroom, you should be in there by now. But those of you still trying to do it, if you want the maintainer role later, I'll hold off a bit to make sure everything settles down, so I don't have to do it a third time or a fourth time really because I messed it up the first time. No, that's fake news. I don't play games on stream. I always entertain the idea, but I was thinking of doing it over the summer while I wasn't teaching, just to do something on stream. I probably won't. If I do something besides lectures on stream, it'll probably be live project demos. I'll just do live coding and work on stuff with and then just invite anybody who wants to stop by to check out what I'm doing. How do we enter things we want to learn, such as Django, to our user story? Good question. Actually, I have a quicker answer for you than that. I was going to show you mine. The answer is you don't. Things you want to learn like Django to a user story, that does not show up in the user story because the user doesn't care. The user doesn't care that you're going to learn Django before completing that user story. Where those things come in is when you write the tasks. So I have this user story. As a student watching a live lecture, I want to ask questions with high visibility so they don't get lost in the rest of the chat. Acceptance tests during lecture, type in the command I'm going to define, and then it shows up on stream. That's my user story, that's my acceptance test, and that's it. Now, once I create tasks for this user story, which you don't have to do yet, but I recommend doing it as soon as you can, as soon as you have time with your team. And shortly after or even during your first meeting next week. But once you break a user story into tasks, you say, this user story, I'm going to complete, or the team is going to complete this on sprint 1. That's when I created these 5 tasks. And one of those tasks was research the Twitch chat API. And once I assigned that task to myself, I made sure I wrote my task test to make sure that I have some way of proving that I've completed this. And for those of you doing research, I quickly put this in Slack. We use too many different apps. I always got to think of the names. When you're doing a research task, you should have some demo. I prefer to have some demo there. That's somewhat optional, but you do have to have detailed notes. You have to go on the issue itself and explain what did you learn, what what can you now do now that you've done this research, and give detailed notes just describing what you actually did for the research. Your research tasks should actually be some of your harder tasks that you complete, because you have to justify that you spent time, but you haven't produced anything. You have to justify that to your team and your project manager. So there are pretty strict requirements for research tasks. They are allowed. Make sure you log that time. If you're legitimately doing research, there shouldn't be any issue. Just whatever you learn, type it up. And preferably, I would like to see a demo whenever I do research on my own. I'll go through like the tutorial and I'll build the demo app that they walk through in the tutorial and things like that. Like, you're going to do that anyway. Show it off to your team and use that as one of your tests to prove that you did that research. You can't sub to me. Sorry. I'm not going to join the affiliate or partner program on Twitch, because then they start playing ads on the channel, and I just don't feel right about that. And without joining that, you can't use bits. You can't get channel points. I believe that's blocked too, and you can't sub. But you don't have to watch ads, which is putting ads on a course that you're already paying for. It sounds awful and immoral. I would argue that that's an ethical issue, especially if I'm getting revenue. I already get paid to do this. Do we refer to ourselves as developers? If you're saying this in the context of user stories, you shouldn't have user stories where you're the user in the story. The customer doesn't care. The customer doesn't care about user stories where you're the person in the story, unless you're building an app that's made for developers to use. Then you can say, as a developer, I want to be able to create issues so our team can track the progress of our work, But assuming you're building a Zen board or a Scrum board in that example. But you shouldn't have user stories. As a developer, I want to learn databases so I can know stuff. Like, that's not a user story. I didn't receive the PM tool link. All my other teammates did. Well, at least you have the link. That's weird that you didn't. I mean, maybe he's still processing all the data. It's like fake news. I don't see any VODs on Elite Gaming Sessions. Yeah, it was fake news. Sorry. Yeah, 6 a.m. tomorrow. It was going to be midnight, but somebody in a different time zone said that time frame just doesn't work. From 3 to midnight was their sleeping time. So I changed it to 6 a.m. to accommodate other time zones. Live grading. I have thought about it. I doubt, I don't know if there'd be any interest in such a thing, which is why I'm not seriously considering it. But like preparing lectures, maybe somebody would want to see that. It would make the task less boring for me to have some company. But preparing lectures is another thing I might stream. But yeah, definitely not grading. I'd have some privacy issues there. Yeah, the PM tool. I haven't used the tool yet. It's my first time teaching 442 since they've been using the tool. But I've heard great things from Matt about it, so I'll learn it at the same time you do. But it's a tool that tracks all the stuff we're doing. Since we have so many stakeholders, the project managers, Matt, myself, and all of you, the tool helps us all be on the same page. But as to the specifics, I haven't checked it out yet. One person, you don't really submit on ZenHub, but one person will add the stories and tests to your Scrum board. You don't want 7 copies of each story on your Scrum board, so only one person does that, or rather, like, each person does one. However you want to split it up, but that only has to be done once. The form has to be submitted by each of you. It can be submitted with identical text from each of you, but it does have to be submitted by each of you. Yeah, looks like you're all getting that PM tool email. Are there really a speed difference for a bunch of if-else versus case statements? Don't compilers handle that for you? I'd be surprised if there's any real difference, any noticeable difference, and I'd say there certainly won't be a significant difference. I would never worry about such a thing. Unless you're, in questions like that, unless you're really, really trying to squeeze the last little bit of performance out of your program, I wouldn't even think about it at all. Use whatever one you're more comfortable with, because when we're talking about small differences like that, and I'll say this in all kinds of contexts when it comes to performance, your time is more important than the computer's time. Computers are made to process billions of computations per second. Our processors are in the gigahertz now. It's billions of operations per second. Your brain can't quite do that. Your brain is going to be the limiting factor these days. So anything you can do to reduce your workload and offload it onto the computer, like that's what computers are designed to do, is do things really fast. Don't stress yourself out. Stress the computer out when it's a small decision. Obviously, if you have like a 5 loops nested inside each other and you're iterating over 1,000,000 elements, don't do silly crap like that. But if it's a constant difference, typically just don't worry about it. What browser do you use on your Mac? I use multiple browsers. I've been favoring Opera for the past few years, but I also use Chrome. I usually have Opera and Chrome open on my laptop. Future of Zoom. I hope they don't put ads on Zoom. I mean, UB pays a bunch of money for a Zoom license, so I don't think you'll see ads unless you have the free version. Yeah, you can't use your Twitch Prime sub, though. Not until I click some buttons and accept my affiliate invitation, which I won't do. Watch paint dry with heart love. I mean, I guess we could do that. Next time I'm watching paint dry, Synchro is that how you pronounce that? I'll DM you. I'll let you know. Is saying that you saw something happen considered an acceptance test? Yeah, as long as you're descriptive about what you're seeing. So if I have an acceptance test, let's see if we can make one up here. Maybe I'll just create a whole thing. Actually, I have one right here, don't I? Like, verify. So my verification on these acceptance tests is looking at the GUI and making sure that the effect that you expect happened. That's absolutely acceptable for part of the acceptance tests. I would argue most acceptance tests will end with that. You'll see this thing happen on the screen. If you mean that literally, as in your acceptance test is, you'll see something happen. Be more descriptive than that. But as long as you're describing what that something that you're expecting is, then yeah, that's legit. That's good. Computers compute things. See, I told you I can teach. I teach good. I told you computers compute. You can take that to the bank. Well worth tuition right there. What about Brave? I downloaded it once and I fiddled around. I just never got into it. I forget why. I teach good. If Chunming ever asked, what'd Jesse teach you? Oh, computers compute. I did say they compute fast. That's even more information. I should start charging you more. Alright, I'm at live chat. Let's at least get one user story in here so I can get an example. To be honest, I haven't thought of any user stories that I want on this thing, besides the 2 that I gave. I need something as an instructor. Oh yeah, that's one I mentioned on Wednesday. So I want a story. As a currently live streaming instructor, I want to delete questions so they don't appear on stream anymore. So this is an example where I'm not going to be too descriptive. I just want to get the feature, the story out there. As a live streaming instructor, I want to delete questions so they don't appear on stream anymore. This captures a few different actual use cases. Maybe I answered the question, or maybe it's a troll question, or maybe it's just flat out inappropriate. Somebody's just bombing the stream and wants to put something stupid on there because they know it'll show up on stream. Whatever the case is, I want the ability to delete questions so they don't appear on the stream anymore. They'll still be in the chat, but whatever. But I don't want them on my stream because the stream's going to be uploaded to YouTube, and it's just more persistent. Where the chat, you can still replay the chat on Twitch, but it won't be permanently part of that production. So I would like to delete those. My acceptance test. With a question that appears on stream, click the remove. Oh my goodness. If I could type next to that question, verify that the question no longer appears on the stream. So I want to make sure that once I click remove that thing, it's gone. Submit. User story acceptance tests. What else do we want on this thing? Let's give the students that power too. As a student watching the live stream, I want to flag questions so I can notify the instructor of an so I can notify the instructor and mods that the question is inappropriate. Acceptance test. And here's one where we're going to define extra behavior in the acceptance test. The story should always be nice and vague. The acceptance test should sometimes elaborate a little bit more on what the user story really means. This is where you can go back and forth with the customer and get some more details down. So for the acceptance test, with a question that appears on stream, with a non-mod account, because we're going to need multiple accounts for this one. We can't click anything. Type flag what appears on stream is with some number that's worded a little weird. Type flag number in chat with a mod account, verify that you see you are notified. I'll leave the actual specifics of how you're notified up in the air, but make sure that you're notified that the question has been flagged. I'm going to put an S on here. So acceptance test 2 here's where we're going to add some extra functionality. I just want to let instructors and mods know that this thing is inappropriate. Let's just kind of make up a number here, 3. Non-mod accounts, type flag number sign in chat, 3. Verify that the question no longer appears on stream. So we'll say that if three viewers all flag the same question, that question without mod or instructor or streamer action, that question is automatically removed from the stream. So if the mods and streamer are busy and there are 3 people in chat who are on top of this and say, whoa, that thing's inappropriate, it's gone. Nobody else has to intervene. So here's where we're adding new functionality to the user story, where we're notifying the instructors and mods that it's inappropriate. Actually, 4. With a mod account, you should still be notified. With a mod account, verify that you are notified that the question has been flagged and 3 times and removed. So you should still be notified. So they're still notifying the instructors and mods, but at this point the app is going to take care of a little extra for us. This is a user story. And you can kind of see I'm just dreaming up features at this point. This is what you should be doing with this activity and at this stage of your project. Just start dreaming up features. These features might never get implemented. They might just always sit in the backlog. But you can dream up any user stories you want. And then if you decide to implement one, like this one should be implemented, it's pretty core to the usability of this thing, then it's going to go over here into the ready. These, they just might sit there in the backlog forever, and that's fine. It'd be perfectly okay. You don't have to split the stories into tasks right now. Not until your team agrees that you're going to work on that user story for that sprint. At that point, that's the absolute latest point where you're going to start splitting into tasks. You can split them into tasks earlier. You can do that whenever you want. But at the latest, once you agree, okay, this user story is going to go into the ready. We're going to start working on it. Then you start writing the tasks for that and add the labels for that sprint of what they're going to be. What is the spec of the computer you're using? I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's beefy. It's got power, though. That's why I'm using this and not my laptop. My laptop starts really struggling once it's processing and streaming live video. It doesn't like it. It starts overheating. So I'm using this. It's a quite powerful desktop. But yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Time is a normal request too? What do you mean by time? Like what time it is? Or how long that question has been up there when it was asked, maybe? Open Task Manager for spec, sure. i7. 16 gigs. Half a terabyte. 3 terabytes. I believe this one's solid state. And this one's regular disk. And it's got a 980. I have 3. I feel like I should get up to 7 since that's the activity. I might not get there. I spend a lot of time chatting, which I'd rather do anyway. The exact same as your old machine? Alright, use system information. You playing Fall Guys. I don't think you need that much of a graphics card to play Fall Guys. I like having the graphics card though, just because I'm processing so much video. Oh, yeah, I guess I should have read that. It's using the... I didn't even notice that. It's using the integrated more than the card. Maybe I don't need a 980 then. Oh well, it's there if I need it. I'd rather have it sitting there doing nothing than have my computer chugging along because I don't have it. I feel like graphics cards are one of those things, they're out of date so quick, and you're only cool if you have the latest one. I used to be cool with the 980. Not anymore. I'm a fucking freaking slow over here with this thing. But it's not even being used anyway, so I think I should write at least one more user story. I'm having trouble thinking of what else I want on this. At this point in the project, and if I find time, what I'll do is implement at least these 2 user stories and start testing it and prototyping it in a chat. Have students use it, and then once they start using it in the spirit of Scrum, once we have that first demo after one sprint, then it's just from that using that testing of with real users. Oh man, this sentence, it's getting away from me. Just that testing with live users is going to bring to light a lot more user stories. People have suggestions. Just the way that I end up using the thing will seem clunky in places, and there'll just be a lot of things that we'll find to improve. But yeah, just starting with nothing and come up with some. It's too small. This would be a good example of something that's too small of an app for this course, because it's tough to just come up with 7 things. Oh, I know one. I got another one. Plus I'm 1 person instead of 5, so it's a little tougher. As an instructor, to review past questions so I can recall what was asked in each lecture. So I want some form of data that I can analyze after. Acceptance test. Stream with several users asking questions. check the database after stream. I should probably be a little more specific here, but check the database after stream and ensure that all the asked questions are present. That could get more specific, like with several different non-mod accounts, go ask questions, kind of like I did with the other one. I am getting a little sloppy there, so I'm getting tired because I've been on stream for a few hours. And right before this I had a 199 recitation, so like 3 hours. And yeah, I am using that as an excuse. AMD is finally competing with Intel. It's fun to hear. I always like more competition. It's usually better for the consumer. I can come up with 2 more. I have another data tracking one. Instructor, I want to view statistics on the users. Instead of questions, let's look at the user side of this. Of the users who ask questions. How do I write this as a testable outcome? So I can see the students who asked. So I can know who so I can see how often each student asks questions. Need more several questions. View the data stored in the database and ensure that the stats appear on a per user basis. Sure. And notice that I'm not saying the mechanism of how you're going to view that. I'm not defining the GUI at this point. I'm just saying that there will be a way to view the data in the database and have it sorted by user. I want to see for each user, be able to consume that information. How it's consumed, how it's displayed, is this a chart, a graph, a JSON object, whatever. That's not defined here. We're just going to say I need to be able to view that information in some way. So I can see, okay, this person's been asking a lot of questions. This person hasn't asked any, I don't even know at this point what I would do with that information, but it'd be information that I'd like to have. We're at 6. We got to get to 7, and then I'll sign off here. I feel like we need something else from the student perspective. This app is for the students after all. Live lecture. Two big features are asking questions and voting on questions that have been asked. What else do we want? I know. I want to respond to polls. Let's add polling to this. Starts a poll using their GUI with a non-mod account with several non-mod accounts. Since it's a vote, we have to have several. Vote for various options using vote option ID, verify that all the votes here on stream. So I can start a poll, y'all can vote, and we can do live voting, live polls through voting through chat. I think that'd be something super dope. Like the vote that we just had in Slack. I have to think about that every time. Like the poll we just had in Slack. We could do that during stream instead. Yep. By the way, that vote's still going until I set up. Right when I get to the point where I'm setting up, however, I'm going to release the grades to you. I'll check that poll again and see where it's at, and use that to decide. It's fairly close, and I'll probably remove my own vote. I'll just have it as student vote. Does that make sense? If I'm calling the tiebreaker anyway, if I cause the tie, I won't cause a tie, I'll say that. But my vote will be the tiebreaker if there's a tie. Alright, hey, I got my 7 user stories, my acceptance tests. Some of my acceptance tests, as I mentioned, could use more detail. For the activity, if they have the same amount of details here, that's fine. But you might want to get more specific with some of these. My last acceptance test, I can specify how many accounts and what the polls should specifically be, what each account should vote for, and maybe even changing their vote if I want. I probably wouldn't want that feature. Maybe that can be another user story down the road that users can change their votes. And then say, when you look at it, this should be what the poll says. For these options, they should have these number of votes. We should probably get that specific once we get down to it. For this activity, and double check with your project manager, see how much detail they'll want. But this amount of detail, at least for now, will be good. So let me check one thing. All right. Anybody have any last questions? Actually, I got through a lot of talking about chat during lecture time and still did the activity. You can see, even with just one of me creating, I had 2 of them already created, but creating 5 of these was no big deal. If you haven't finished the activity yet, I mean, just get it done. It's not that hard. Most of it's just thinking about your project and what you want. Did anyone respond to that? I thought I mentioned in chat if that's still an issue. If you go to the initial project form and go to the classroom, like what are you trying to access? I just need more information is what I'm saying, so I can fix the issue. Because most students have been able to get into their repos, so my guess is that it's just something you're not clicking the right button. I can't access my team in A9's repo. So you went through the steps of going to the initial project form. Oops, that's editing it. You went to the GitHub Classroom. It'll ask you to accept the assignment. And then it'll give you, I'm already on a team, but it'll give you a list of teams that you can join. And then find your team, click join, and then you should have access to that repo. If you go through that and it doesn't work, send me a DM on Slack.